Hi, everyone. I'm Terry Morano. We have breaking news in the trial of former President Donald Trump. 12 jurors have now been seated. The court still has to determine 6 alternates for this case, and they will decide, all these jurors, the 12 at the end, whether Donald Trump falsified business records to hide a payment to porn star Stormy Daniels, and if Trump falsified those documents to hide the affair from voters ahead of the 2016 election. That is the crux of this case. Let's bring in executive editorial producer John Santucci, senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky, legal contributor and trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer, who've been with us throughout. Aaron Katursky, let me go to you first. What can you tell us about this jury?
This jury is made up of 7 men and 5 women, all from the diverse neighborhoods of Manhattan. All of them said they could be fair and impartial, but they all have some opinion of former President Trump. As one of the jurors who was selected said, Terry, he was president. Everybody was talking about him. And so there is one woman on the jury who says she doesn't like his persona, but nonetheless pledged to his attorneys to give him a fair shake.
All right, 7 men, 5 women. I got that right? Yes. Okay.
Correct. 7 men, 5 women. They're still picking the alternates. 1 alternate so far has been chosen.
Right, and thank you, Aaron, for that very much. And given the way courts, trials usually go, Brian Buckmeyer, I'll go to our trial attorney here. It's likely that some of those alternates will end up deciding the case should it come to that. So when you hear 7 men, 5 women, does that make any difference to you as you're slicing and dicing who would be beneficial to one side or the other?
Each case presents its own different uniqueness, and sometimes race plays a factor, sometimes gender plays a factor, sometimes employment. I would think in a case like this, gender doesn't really matter. I would be more interested in an employment background and what parts of Manhattan they're in. I'll give you an example. We know that there are 2 attorneys on this jury. If they were 2 public defenders or 2 white-collar attorneys, both are attorneys, but we can probably surmise 2 very different opinions. And so I think employment matters way more than gender. But to your point about jury selection, the way that New York operates, the order in which these jurors are selected is very important. The first person is the foreperson. It's not like in other states where you elect a foreperson. And the first alternate selected is often the first person chosen to be on the jury if you lose one of those 12. So that first alternate's important, so is the second and the third, and so on and so forth.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Brian. Let's go to John Santucci, who has covered the Trump team from the beginning and before, it seems, almost, John. So one of the things Donald Trump has tried to do is delay this case. It's moving along at a good clip, and he won't be able to do that.
No, I mean, this is moving away at lightning speed. I mean, quite frankly, watching our team in court saying as the numbers went up, Terry, of course, we backslid to 5, but then 5 became 7, became 10, became 12, and now we even have an alternate. I mean, talk about how things have picked up in lightning speed as the day comes to an end on Thursday. And look, what's remarkable here, as you mentioned, the Trump team tried on Monday to delay this case yet again. Look at where we are 4 days later, that we now have a jury for the moment. Obviously, somebody could try to bail, but already going into alternates, it does look like this thing is going to move forward. Now, the question, obviously, as Aaron Katursky was just noting, they're still going through the process, so it doesn't seem like they have all the alternates set yet, so that could continue into tomorrow. But then we have to see when we get to opening statements. It does seem like Judge Merchan indicated be ready to go Monday morning, and all systems seem to point that way. That question, though, is obviously the timeline, right? Because obviously we know from what prosecutors have said that they would go 6 to 8 weeks. Then obviously the defense would have to respond to everything. So how much longer does this eventually play out? The one thing that is clear, and I think just to remind our viewers at home at where our week began as the schedule started to get set here, this schedule is completely, totally out of Donald Trump's hands. And by the fact that, as you know, Terry, he wanted to go to your city next week to the Supreme Court hearing on his efforts to delay the January 6th efforts to overturn case brought by special counsel Jack Smith, Judge Merchan said, nope. You're a defendant in New York County criminal court here. You are staying in the state of New York. That alone, a blow to Donald Trump, and I think the reality is setting in that for the next several weeks, the guy that made it in New York and became a Floridian is going to be in New York stuck for just a bit.
Yeah, and let me take your mention of several weeks back to Aaron Katursky. Aaron, It does look like this trial is going to get underway sometime next week. What is the timeline based on what each side has said they want to do with witnesses and how they want to approach this trial, with the nature of the case itself?
The judge has been telling the jurors that the testimony could take about 6 weeks. Now, a lot of that, Terry, is going to depend on the defense cross-examination of the witnesses. We're not sure what kind of case the defense ultimately might put on, but there are around 18 witnesses for the people that are expected to be called, and they read like a who's who of the Trump administration, the Trump campaign from 2016, and maybe even members of the Trump family. The prospective jurors were asked if they had recognized any of the names, and names like Melania Trump, Ivanka Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels. These are the people who are going to make up the bulk of the people's case, not people who are necessarily political opponents, but people that used to be, or still are in some cases, part of the former president's inner circle.
All right, Aaron, thank you for that preview of what the jurors can expect. And John Santucci, let me go back to you with what was going on inside the courtroom today.
Yeah, from our team of Olivia Rubin and Peter Haralambos, who are still there, Terry. So the 12 jurors that Aaron and I were just talking about with you, they have been sworn in. And just this visual, you know, this is such a shame with the New York State court system. There's no cameras in court, but thank God for our reporters who are there. All 12 raising their right hand and at some time looking at Donald Trump as they swore to be fair and impartial manner as they hear the facts of this case. I just think the surreal moment of this, right? To think that Donald Trump, the guy who so badly wanted to make it in New York, look at how his year began, a $500 million fine brought by a case in the civil court by the New York State Attorney General, and now to think he is sitting in criminal court facing a 34-count indictment and a jury of his peers, if we can even believe that, that is the truth, his peers, fellow New Yorkers, about to judge him. Fascinating, just truly unbelievable to see it.
His fate in their hands. It's a weighty burden on the jurors, for sure. Aaron, John, Brian, thank you very much.